Hi everyone, my name's Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer. Today, this video is going to be in 3 parts. I would like to talk to you about books and I would like to do the end of the year book tag because I love seeing people's answers for this. And I often want to do it myself, and some years I've done it, but it never feels long enough for a whole video, or maybe I just make really long videos. So I would like it to be part of this video, but not the whole thing. Then I would like to just have a chat with you about life stuff. And then we're going to do some autumnal baking. So kind of 3 things you might get in a reading vlog, except this is not a reading vlog. Welcome. Pull up a seat. Please join me. And also I will leave the questions for the end of the year book tag in the description box down below if you would like to do it yourself. Leave it in a comment if you would like to. I would love to see your answers. So this tag was started a long time ago by Ariel Bissett, and I know that there are various iterations. It's morphed over the years a bit, but I've gone to her video from a couple of years ago where she redid the tag and have written down the questions, and I have some books to talk to you about. So first off is a question that I feel very confronted by. It is, are there any books you have started this year that you need to finish? And actually I don't mind this question, given this tag has been created by Ariel, and Ariel would fully admit that she is the queen of starting books and then not finishing them. So I don't have quite as many as she has. In fact, I will link, if I can find it, I'm sure I can, an episode of her podcast that she does with Raylene, Books Unbound, where they did the end of the year book tag this year, and she was talking about all the books she hadn't finished. So for me, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly more, but I think it's 5. That's not terrible, is it? And what I would like to do is to do a reading vlog, hopefully before the end of the year, where I just read these books and finish them. We've got 3 short story collections and 2 novels. So this is Gods of Want by K-Ming Chang, and this is quite good for this time of year because it's a little bit Halloweeny, a bit fabulous. It says it contains 9-headed birds, ghost cousins, and a storm chaser. So yes, definitely good for the autumn months. I've only read the first couple of stories. Then we have Walking on Cowrie Shelves by Nkweti, which I think I started reading in February and was loving, but haven't finished. It's got a quote on the front from Carmen Maria Machado. Always a very good sign, and I have read, again, the first couple of stories. And then we've got Here Be Icebergs by Katya Adaui, who is a Peruvian author, and this is translated by Rosalind Harvey. You know, sometimes I wonder where all of my bookmarks have gone, and it's because they're in the books that I haven't finished yet. So again, would like to finish that by the end of the year. And then we've got 2 novels. We've got When We Were Birds by Ayana Lloyd Banwo, which I was reading when I was reading some of the Jaluk Prize longlisted and shortlisted books this year. Set around a graveyard, so again, possibly very good for this time of year. And then finally we have The Movement by Ayisha Malik, which is a dystopian, and I was listening to this one on audiobook, was enjoying it, but then had too many deadlines, put it to one side, need to get back into it. Next question is, do you have an autumnal book to transition you into the end of the year? I think in the past I filmed this tag in September and we're already towards the end of October. So I have been well into my autumn reading already. So I thought I would recommend some books I've read this year that have been very good for reading in September, October, November time. I loved reading Ghost Stories by Jeanette Winterson, but it's called Night Side of the River. I read that a couple of weeks ago and I'm reviewing it for Toast this month. Jeanette Winterson's Ghost Stories. If you enjoyed her book Christmas Days, it's very similar because there are ghost stories, but interspersed between those are non-fiction pieces where she's talking about her experience with the unexplained. And Christmas Days was mostly ghost stories anyway, wasn't it? Just set around Christmas. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. And I have really enjoyed Seance Tea Party by Reimena, which is just the cutest graphic novel. At the moment, I am reading Halloween books for a vlog that's going up next Sunday, and this was one of them. So spoiler for that vlog, but if you are looking for something similar to the Tea Dragon Society, this should tick that box for you. I would also recommend Garlic and the Vampire as well, which is by Bree Paulson. But let me just show you a couple of spreads from this book because the colour palette is chef's kiss. Look at that. That is just a delight. This is about a girl who is transitioning into teenagers and is feeling quite separated from her friends and lonely, so she decides to befriend a ghost instead, which just seems like an excellent plan to me, to be honest. It's just very, very wholesome and kind of looking at how we're made to feel that we have to leave behind lots of things as we grow up instead of taking them with us. And really, those things can evolve, like our imagination and our sense of fun and our sense of play. Like, those things have a place in adulthood as well, and this novel grants permission for that, and I just thought it was delightful. So those are ones that I have been reading that I think that have really transitioned me into autumn well, and I have others that I would like to get to, but I think maybe they'll slot into questions further down, so I'll just continue. Is there a new release you're still waiting for? Now, most books that are going to come out before the end of the year come out before I'm filming this video. Super Thursday has just been, which is the day when publishers release all of their books that they want to push for Christmas. And then nothing too much comes out before the end of the year. And then in January, you get a whole slew of cookbooks and things like that. Things about restarting your year and new year, new you, and all of that nauseating stuff, which I'm not a fan of. So it tends to be quite quiet in the publishing sphere between now and very early spring, late winter. However, there is one book that I have on pre-order, and I'm just going to get the blurb up so I can read it to you. It is coming out on the 26th of October. The cover is here. It's called Moving Mountains, Writing Nature Through Illness and Disability. So this is a collection of essays where disabled and chronically ill writers have written about their relationship with nature through the lens of chronic illness and disability. And we've got some folk in here whose work I've read before and really liked, such as Polly Atkin, who I spoke about in last week's vlog. Who else? Karani Baraka, who I think I also spoke about in last week's vlog, actually. Abby Palmer and Louise Kenwood. And this is, oh, it's edited by Louise Kenwood. So yes, this one is coming out on the 26th of October, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to that. I don't know if I'll read it before the end of the year, but it's one that I have been anticipating. The next question is, what are 3 books you want to read by the end of the year? I would like to read many more books than 3 by the end of the year, but to link that in with books that would kind of transition into autumn times, I would quite like to read In the Province of the Gods by Kenny Fries, which is a non-fiction book about Kenny going to Japan, talking about traveling around Japan and talking about being diagnosed as HIV positive. And he's also discussing disabled gods in here as well, I think. I would also possibly like to read the new Nicci French book before the year is out. This book is not out in the UK until February, but I believe is out in translation across Europe. So this one is called, has anyone seen Charlotte Salter? So I may curl up with this one possibly over Christmas. I would like to read Mistletoe is it called Mistletoe Madness or Mistletoe Mayhem? I will insert the cover here. It's a reissue classic that Faber are bringing out about a dysfunctional family at Christmas time, and that sounds like a fun thing to read, and obviously I would like to read that before the end of the year. And then I would like to get to a Persephone as well. I don't know if it'll be this specific one, but I just went through the books that I have over there behind the camera that you can't see, where I've piled my Persephone books. I think I have about maybe 8 that I haven't read yet, and this one is by RC Sherriff, who wrote the Hopkins manuscript, which was one of my favourite books a couple of years ago. That one is science fiction. It's about the moon colliding with the earth. RC Sherriff wrote it on the lead up to the Second World War, so it has that real ominous feel to it. So this one is going to be very different because it's not science fiction at all. It's called Greengates. I think this is a very quiet novel about a couple in their older age where they have retired and moved to the countryside, and they kind of don't want to be around each other all the time, I think, but they also don't want to say that to each other. So it's how they're trying to both enjoy each other's company but stay away from each other quite a lot. And I think that the narrator is tending to his garden. It seems quite quiet. I'm not sure that much happens in it. I also have Fortnight in September, I think it's called, which is also by him. I didn't read it in September, and part of me wants to read it in September, so that one might have to wait until next year, which may be ridiculous, but that's kind of just how I feel about it. But yeah, I would like to read a Persephone book. I always associate that publisher with this time of year. The next question is one I never really know how to answer, because the answer is always yes, but it's hard to give more context to that because you just don't know yet. The question is there a book you think could still shock you and become one of your favourite books, or your favourite book of the year, sorry. I think this is a question that's more relevant to what you have already read this year and whether or not you have read some really standout books. And if there's one that's your favourite book of the last 5 years, you're probably not going to read something that beats it time-wise before the end of the year. I have read so many good books this year, but when I did my best books of 2023 video in June, so my best books of the year so far, I struggled to rank the books because they were very, very close together. So because of that, I think something could come in and become my favourite book of the year. But as to what that book is, I have no idea. There are plenty of books on my shelves that I'm excited to get to, but there isn't one that I could point to and say, that's the one, that's definitely going to be my favourite book of the year. So we shall have to wait and see. And the final question is, have you already started planning your reading for next year? And the answer is yes and no, and links into the next part of this video where I said that I would like to have a chat with you about life stuff. So for the next little while, very short period, I'm going to be talking about pregnancy, and if you do not want to listen to that, which I completely understand, I will put a timestamp here and you can skip ahead to the baking, but I am going to keep this very short. Before I say anything else in this segment, I just want to say that I know how difficult, how hard it is to listen to someone else talk about pregnancy and babies if you are struggling to get pregnant yourself and or you have had a loss. I know what that is like. Over these past however many years, 6 and nearly 7 years, I have watched pregnancy announcement videos from people that I have followed for ages, being simultaneously very happy for them, but also just it was destroying me. And I thought if I didn't watch those videos, that I was doing a disservice to them or that I was a bad person, and that's just not true. Life is really complicated and difficult and emotions are weird. So please do skip ahead if you would like to. But as I said, I am going to be keeping this section short. So in summary, which is such a bizarre thing to say because I could talk for hours, days about this. There are so many things that I could say. It seems so silly in a way to try and condense something so complicated and vast into a couple of minutes in a video. But in short, I am pregnant. If you have been here, then you know that I have been doing IVF for a very long time, for many, many years, and it has been extremely difficult and upsetting. And I didn't think that this was something I would ever get to say in a video. I don't particularly know how I have got to this point. And also when I say these things, it just sounds like a massive cliche, which I guess is what happens when you condense something very complicated into a couple of sentences. I have not spoken about this yet because even when I became pregnant, I honestly didn't think that this would be a pregnancy that I carried to term. There's been a lot of complications. IVF pregnancies are very different from normal pregnancies as well. You keep taking all of the medication, all the IVF drugs. It's different for each clinic, but for me it was until week 13, which was a lot. And I would would like to say that I would quite like a gold medal because I filmed the Booker Prize long list reading vlog during my first trimester. I was sick. But also thank you for for so many things. But this channel is so helpful to me and has been so helpful to me over these years when I've been going through very difficult things because it gives me structure. and allows me this space to talk about something that isn't all of the other stuff that is going on in my life. So filming that Booker Prize video in particular was really, really helpful, and you didn't know that, but now you know that, so thank you. So yeah, I didn't mention it, one, because I wasn't ready to, but also it was nice to have a space where I could talk about other things. And even when we got to 12, 13 weeks and I stopped taking the IVF drugs, I didn't know where I was at, where we were at. I didn't know what was going to happen. It still felt very uncertain. I've had lots of scares. It's been a balancing act of trying to work out what is safe, what we can do to make things safer. I knew that pregnancy in this body would be challenging, and it is. So I'm not surprised by that at all. But yes, it has been difficult, it has been overwhelming, and I just wasn't ready to talk about it yet. But now I am about halfway through, just over halfway through. I'm hoping that this is slightly firmer ground, but I just don't know. But it's now been so long that I want to mention it. I haven't actually shared very much about IVF, which I know may sound like a really silly thing for me to say, because I wrote a book that was in part about IVF. But I think, as I said at the beginning of the segment, I can't remember what I've already said, should have made notes. I could talk to you for days about all of the things. Actually, I was looking back on my videos, and this video last year, because I upload every Sunday, this Sunday last year was the video that I made telling you that the last round of IVF that we had done had been unsuccessful and how devastated I was. I was so depressed throughout all of the end of last year, the beginning of this year. I mean, I don't think I even need to say that. I think it was extremely obvious. So it's very odd that this is the video that I'm filming today. Like, I hadn't planned it to be, obviously, a year since that video, but that's how it's worked out. And there have been strange coincidences like that. For instance, our embryo transfer this time turned out to be on the due date of our last baby, which was obviously not planned and a complete coincidence, and was just very weird to think about, because your brain wants to put weight and meaning into these things, but you can't pinpoint a meaning for this. It's a lot to hold at once. I've been feeling that I've been holding so many things, and I think that we can oversimplify emotions when it comes to pregnancy announcements, maybe because we just don't talk about fertility journeys enough. There are lots of different reasons, but it's very odd to be obviously very grateful, so grateful for the position that I'm in now, and yet terrified because it has been really terrifying. Happy, but also so desperately sad for everything that has come before, because even though I am pregnant now, it doesn't erase any of the sadness or difficulty that came beforehand. And I'm not really sure what I thought would happen, to be honest. I didn't think that it would erase everything, but I do find myself trying to hold all of these different things simultaneously, which I think is extremely normal, but hard to articulate. So yes, holding hope and grief at the same time is a very, very odd thing. And you may be wondering what this means for this channel. And I'm not going to be talking about pregnancy going forward. I say that I may mention a few things in passing along the way, because obviously this is a massive thing that is going on in my life, but I'm not going to be giving pregnancy updates, and I'm not going to be posting baby photos or including our baby in any footage once they're here. That's how I just feel about it. Everyone has to navigate that in their own particular way, but I just feel like this element of our lives is not for the internet, and I'm feeling extremely protective over it. I'm also, I think, just very mindful about, as I mentioned, how difficult it is to see those things and hear people talk about those things if that's not a position that you are in. So I'm also doing that for other people, but also for my past self, because I remember that and still feel that acutely. So for a whole host of reasons, I won't be talking about pregnancy and baby stuff much going forward at all. But this channel, I will still be on this channel, and I will still be uploading videos, and I will still be talking about books, and I'll still be doing walking. There has been less walking recently, but yes, there will be walking, and there will be baking, and there will be obviously a point where I'm going to have to take a bit of a break, and then I'm going to have to figure out the schedule for coming back. But I will be here. I will be here. This is my job. I am not planning on disappearing, and my content is not going to change with regard to books, etc. That's what I want this place to be, which I hope is good with you. And yes, that's kind of what I wanted to say. And one of the other reasons I don't talk about it is because when I do, I just cry. So I think this, for me, has been a reminder. This whole process, this 6-7 year process, has been a reminder for me, and maybe want to pass on to you to remember, because I am guilty of forgetting sometimes, that there is so much going on in the lives of people that we watch online. And I can't remember who said it. I want to say that it's John Green, but this may be not true. And if you can remember who said it online, let me know in a comment down below. But to remember that when we are seeing people online, and just in life actually, is to imagine people complexly, because there are many things that are going on in people's lives, and we see a very small part of it. And I'm very grateful that you let me share the stuff that I want to share on here, and that you're here with me to talk about books and about other things that I love. And I know that, especially for those of you who have read Please Do Not Touch This Exhibit, you know how much, or you've at least got a bit of an inkling of how much this means and what this journey to get here has been like. So yes, I know you're all going to be very lovely, so I will thank you in advance for loveliness. Now, what I would like to do is to do some baking. It's one of my favourite things to make this time of year, and maybe you would like to try it at home if you would like to, or you can just watch. You don't have to be making. I am hopefully seeing Sana tomorrow, and when I was talking about things I wanted to bake this autumn winter, she slid into my DMs and said, you know, these are my favourite things that you make. So I have remembered that. So I would like to make some of these gingerbread cupcakes so that I can give one to her tomorrow. And I will link the recipe in the description box down below. But let's move into the kitchen and go bake.
Hi, it's actually the next day because I thought it would be nicer to make the cupcakes on the day that I was gonna give some to her. Not that they wouldn't keep, they'll keep for several days. But anyway, I'm gonna make them now. And I was gonna talk you through the recipe, but actually it's so simple, I don't need to. I will link the recipe in the description box down below. It's essentially just mixing together butter and sugar, and then adding eggs, milk, and molasses, which is the only maybe slightly difficult ingredient to get a hold of. I think most supermarkets have it these days. And eggs. So you mix all those together in one bowl, and then you put all your dry ingredients together in another. I would recommend using an electric whisk because the molasses makes everything clump together a bit, so it can be a bit difficult to make it smooth. And then I'm going to make a cream cheese frosting to go on top. But yeah, I will do a montage, and then if you actually want the specifics of the recipe, they're in the video description down below. So let's make them. Though I have just realised that I only have half the molasses that I actually need. So we're only going to make 6 cupcakes today, but I think 6 is enough. there we go. That's it. Let me know if you make them. I have made them gluten-free before as well, and they work brilliantly gluten-free. No need to substitute a different kind of flour like almond flour or whatever. Just ordinary gluten-free plain flour works just fine. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you're new to my channel and you would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. If you enjoy my content and you would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, that'd be very kind. Patreon is a place where you can support creators, and the support over there allows me to keep creating content on here for you, free content, and also funds my time making it accessible by creating captions and all of that good stuff. As I mentioned earlier, I will see you next week for a Halloween reading vlog where I'm going to attempt to make pumpkin gnocchi, which I think, well, it sounds delicious, and let's hope that it works. And yeah, thanks so much for being here, and I will see you soon. Lots of love. Bye.